Welcome to the Olive Grove podcast.
Yeah.
Great to have you with us. We aim to take complex sources, pull out the key stuff, and really give you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed.
That's the goal.
And today we're doing a deep dive into, well, a really powerful ancient story. It's one that I think speaks volumes to us today.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at the book of Nehemiah, specifically chapter 5. It's quite a story.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission, if you will, for this deep dive is to explore how this leader, Nehemiah, tackled a major crisis. We're talking social justice issues, financial hardship, but crucially, happening within his own community.
Yeah, that's the twist.
And we want to see, what timeless lessons are buried in there for us. What can we learn about compassion, leadership, integrity?
It's a fascinating setup. So picture this. The people of Israel are back in Jerusalem. They're fired up, working together on this huge project, rebuilding the city wall, a massive undertaking.
Right, a unifying goal.
Yeah, you'd think so. But the real drama, the significant opposition Nehemiah encounters, it isn't just the usual external enemies. No, it bubbles up from right inside. A deep, painful conflict within their own ranks.
And for our deep dive today, we're leaning on insights from MCS, which stands for Messianic Covenant Studies. They offer a really detailed look at Nehemiah chapter 5.
Yeah, it gives a great perspective on the struggle and Nehemiah's response, almost like you're there.
So the whole thing kicks off with this great outcry. It's the ordinary people, the common families, men, women, children, crying out against their own kin, the wealthier Judeans.
You can almost feel the desperation.
Absolutely.
And the text, right at the start of chapter 5, it lays out their suffering pretty starkly. You've got lots of families, big families, but no food.
Why no food, though? Weren't they farmers?
Well, that's the thing. They'd put aside their normal work farming, tending vineyards, to throw everything into rebuilding that wall. A vital task, sure, but it left their own family staring starvation in the face. Their plea was basic survival. They needed grain so that we can eat and stay alive. Simple as that. It really shows how noble goals can fall apart if you ignore people's basic needs.
And things got desperate. I mean, the measures they had to take. It's hard to imagine. The text says people were mortgaging our fields, vineyards, and homes in order to buy grain because of the famine.
Giving up everything. Generational land just for food.
Exactly. Sacrificing their future for the present. And then there was another layer, borrowing money for the king's taxes against our fields and vineyards.
Right. So even if you managed to get some food, the taxes were this separate, crushing weight, double jeopardy, really.
So who was benefiting from all this hardship? Who are they borrowing from?
And this is where it gets really painful. The text is blunt. It was their rich Jewish brothers, their own kinsmen, exploiting their desperation.
That's rough.
It gets worse. The most shocking part, verse 5. It's heartbreaking. They say, "We are bringing our sons and daughters into bondage as slaves. Some of our daughters have gone into slavery already."
Losing their children.
Yes, not just land, but their kids, sold into servitude. And their cry is just full of injustice. Our flesh is no different from the flesh of our kinsmen, and our children are the same as their children. We're the same people.
And they felt utterly powerless.
Completely. It's beyond our power to do anything about it because other men have our fields and vineyards. They were trapped.
And this wasn't just like bad business practice. This cut deeper, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. This was a massive spiritual betrayal. What they were doing was flying directly against God's laws that he gave to Moses.
The laws about interest.
Specifically those. Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. God explicitly told them not to charge interest to a fellow Israelite in need. Not just don't charge too much interest, but don't charge any interest, period.
So no loopholes.
None. It was about community care, mutual support, and that principle was being trampled.
So just pause and think about this situation. A community working shoulder to shoulder on this massive, symbolic project.
Yeah, rebuilding their identity, their security.
But underneath, it's fractured, ripped apart by exploitation from within. It's a stark reminder, isn't it? Sometimes the biggest dangers are closer than you think.
Mm-hmm. Not the enemies outside the walls, but the decay inside.
Okay, so Nehemiah hears about all this.
Mm-hmm.
What's his reaction? The text says, "When I heard their outcry and the reasons for it, I became very angry."
Right. And it's important to understand this anger. It's presented as a righteous anger, justified, not just losing his temper.
Like Jesus in the temple.
Exactly like that. It's anger rooted in seeing God's law broken, seeing people exploited, seeing injustice. It makes you ask, when is anger the right response and what do you do with it?
And Nehemiah channels it. He doesn't just explode. It says he thought the matter over and then took issue with the nobles and rulers.
That's key. Thoughtful action. He processed it, then he acted strategically, wisdom guiding the anger.
So what did he do?
He called a great assembly, a public meeting, and he confronted them head on. No beating around the bush.
Right in front of everyone.
Yep, he charged them, "You are lending against pledges, everyone to his brother." Then he hits them with this powerful reminder, basically saying, look, we've worked so hard, stretched ourselves thin to buy back our brothers who were sold to foreigners.
And now you are selling your own brothers. We'll just have to buy them back again.
Exactly. He exposed the sheer hypocrisy and the impact. The text says they stayed silent. They couldn't think of anything to say.
Guilty as charged.
That silence speaks volumes. They knew they were wrong.
And Nehemiah didn't stop there. He connected it to their reputation, their witness. He said, what you are doing is not good. You should be living in fear of our God.
So that our pagan enemies won't have grounds for deriding us. It wasn't just an internal affair. It affected how others saw them and their God.
Powerful stuff.
And then, crucially, Nehemiah leads by example. He doesn't just preach, he practices. He says, look, my brothers and my servants, I too have loaned them money and grain. But importantly...
Without interest.
Without interest. He basically says, please, let's stop making it so burdensome to go into debt. He lived the standard he demanded. Which makes you wonder, right? What do people who don't share our faith think when they see us not living up to our own standards, treating each other badly?
Yeah, are we helping or hurting? Profiting from hardship? It's a sharp challenge.
Definitely.
So Nehemiah confronts them. He exposes the hypocrisy. He sets the example. But he doesn't leave it there. He demands action. Now?
Yes, his demand is immediate and specific. Please, today, give them back their fields, vineyards, olive groves, and homes, and not just the property.
Also, the 100 pieces of silver and the grain, wine, and olive oil you demand from them as interest. He wanted it all back. Restitution. Full stop.
And remember that point about interest. Even a tiny rate, say 1%, which might seem negligible to us.
Still forbidden in this context by God's law.
Exactly. It wasn't about the percentage. It was the principle. Compassion within the community covenant, which honestly makes you pause and think about our modern financial world, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, you look at credit cards, banking systems, payday loans. The interest rates can be enormous, far beyond anything happening here. Are our systems built on principles that align with that kind of compassion Nehemiah is talking about? Or are we, maybe without even realizing it, profiting from vulnerability, even if it's legal?
That's a heavy question, a really important one. So how did the rich leaders respond to Nehemiah's demand?
Amazingly, they agreed. Right there. We will give it back. We will require nothing from them. Yes, we will do it, just as you say.
Just like that.
Well, Nehemiah was wise. He didn't just trust their immediate promise. He knew human nature. So he called the Kohanim, the priests, and took an oath from them that they would do as they had promised.
Made it official, sacred.
Before God and the community. And then he did something symbolic. He shook out his garment, like shaking dust off.
What did that mean?
It was a visual curse. He proclaimed, "May God thus shake every man from his house and from his work who fails to live up to this promise. May he be shaken out like this and made empty." Strong stuff.
Wow. And the people?
They responded, amen. And the text confirms they actually followed through. They kept their promise.
So the oath, the symbol, the public accountability, it worked.
It did. It shows the power of making commitments public and understanding there are real consequences, maybe even spiritual ones, to breaking your word, especially when justice is involved.
We've seen Nehemiah's decisive action in this crisis. It really highlights how, God can work through individuals to bring about justice and restoration.
Truly.
And speaking of restoration and meeting needs, before we dig into Nehemiah's ongoing leadership, I want to mention something close to our hearts here at the Olive Grove podcast.
Okay.
We're connected with Enduring Freedom Ministries, EFM. They do incredible work, and they've actually put together a book called Misfits for Jesus, True Accounts of People Experiencing Jesus.
I've heard about that. Amazing stories.
Absolutely inspiring. It shows God working powerfully today, helping people connect with Jesus. You can find it on Amazon. Definitely worth checking out.
And it ties in beautifully, doesn't it? Because EFM, much like Nehemiah addressing the needs of his people, they have this vital project.
Right. They're working to establish a food pantry right there in Jerusalem.
Meeting that fundamental need for food, just like Nehemiah ensured his workers were fed, it's a direct parallel.
It really is. And if you feel moved to support this, any donation helps them provide essential food and hope in a place with deep needs. We'll put a link in the show notes for how you can contribute to EFM's Jerusalem Food Pantry project.
A very worthy cause, connecting directly to these themes.
Okay, so let's get back to Nehemiah. His leadership wasn't just a one-off confrontation. How did he govern long-term? The text mentions his 12 years as governor.
Yeah, and this part is really striking, too. He says, point blank, neither I nor my colleagues drew on the governor's living allowance for 12 years.
No salary for the governors.
None, which was totally different from the governors before him. They had apparently burdened the people, taxing them heavily for their own upkeep, food, wine, the works. Even their staff acted high and mighty.
So Nehemiah deliberately chose a different path. Why?
His reason is simple but profound. But I didn't, because I feared God. And again, this fear isn't terror. It's deep reverence, respect, an unwillingness to dishonor God by burdening the people or seeking personal gain.
Imagine if more leaders today operated from that kind of reverence, that deep sense of accountability to something higher than profit or power.
It would change things, wouldn't it?
Completely. And Nehemiah stayed laser-focused on the main goal. He says, moreover, I put all my energy into working on this wall. No distractions, buying land for himself.
We didn't buy any land, and all my servants were gathered there for the work. Him and his whole team were all in on the project, not feathering their own nests.
It really makes you think of what Jesus said, right? About storing up treasure.
Exactly. Matthew 6. Store up treasures in heaven. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Nehemiah lived that. His heart was in God's work and the people's well-being, not personal wealth.
It really challenges us, you know. What are we really pursuing? Where's our energy going? What treasures are we storing up?
A constant self-check.
And Nehemiah's generosity didn't stop at foregoing his salary. He goes into detail about his daily expenses as governor.
Yeah, this is incredible. He hosted 150 leaders and other Judeans, plus visitors from other nations, every single day at his table.
That's a lot of mouths to feed.
A huge number.
Yeah.
And he lists the provisions. 1 ox, 6 choice sheep, and fowl. And every 10 days, a supply of all kinds of wine. Daily feasts.
Who paid for all that?
He did, personally. He makes it clear. Yet in spite of all this, I never claimed the governor's allowance. Why? Because the people were already bearing the heavy burden of their labor.
Wow. So he saw their struggle, felt their burden, and actively chose to lighten it through his own sacrifice rather than add to it.
It's just profound servant leadership, a powerful lesson for anyone in a position of influence today. Especially maybe for those who have plenty but seem blind to the needs around them, the brothers and sisters without food or shelter. Nehemiah shows a different way.
So wrapping up this deep dive into Nehemiah chapter 5, what are the big takeaways? We've seen themes of social justice, definitely ethical leadership.
The importance of community responsibility, absolutely. And these timeless principles from God's law about compassion, about integrity, especially in financial matters.
It feels incredibly relevant, a story from thousands of years ago, speaking right into our modern world.
And notice Nehemiah's final prayer in this section. It's simple. My God, remember favorably everything I have done for this people.
Not asking for reward now, but for remembrance.
Exactly. It connects to that idea of future reward, future vindication. Like in Revelation, where it talks about the judgment of the works of the children of God. Our actions, our service for the kingdom, they matter, they're seen, and they will be remembered. What Nehemiah did counts eternally.
Just like our own acts of service, hopefully.
That's the hope.
So as we finish, here's something to chew on. How do we take these ancient principles, Nehemiah's compassion, his demand for justice, his selfless leadership, and actually apply them today? In our own lives, yes, but also in our communities, maybe even our larger systems.
It's more than just admiring him, right?
What needs to shift inside us? How do we prioritize real compassion and justice, even when it costs us something personally? What practical steps could you, listening right now, maybe consider taking, inspired by Nehemiah's example?
A lot to think about there.
Definitely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a rich discussion.
Always good to dig into these stories.
And hey, don't forget to subscribe to the Olive Grove podcast on YouTube so you don't miss our next deep dive. Thanks for listening.